driver preview, shall we? And the guy that's going to impress us least, as usual, is going to be Lance Stroll. If you remember, I'm not going to show it because I laugh too much every time. If you remember last year, it was destruction of race by gravel trap. Yes, he's the only driver I know of that's been on concrete, could quite easily get back on the race, and then decides to drive on the gravel trap to end his race. Next up, we have got the Ayrton Senna cosplay, Franco Colapinto. I hope he can do well. There are rumours that Alpine are going to re-sign him. Why? I know that sounds a bit harsh, because based on the current evidence, I'm sure there's better drivers out there. He looked amazing in Williams, and didn't he? This time, well, initially when he started with Williams, Franco Colapinto coming out of the blue, Alpine really wanted him, and it's just a bit, I don't know, underwhelming. I think you take him and Jack Doohan, and there's not really much of a difference between them, except that Franco Colapinto has had more of an opportunity. When I heard the rumours that Jack Doohan was going to replace Franco, I thought, oh, that is a really, really good idea. I think that that could work really well. It will give them a chance to assess Jack. Maybe they choose for him or Franco or somebody else in the future. But alas, no. Next up, a guy that's also struggling, and many think he's going to be losing his F1 drive, is Liam Lawson. I would love. Now, don't get me wrong. When I try and do the list and who I think is from worst to best, I want them to do well. I don't dislike any of the F1 drivers. I'm just being honest about my feelings, and my feelings say about Liam Lawson, he's just too inconsistent. On his days, he can be amazing, but there we go. So next up from Liam Lawson, I'm going to put this man here. He might well start at the back. We know how rubbish the Alpine is, and it's going to be interesting if they're even going to score another point. I mean, I hope I'm wrong. Part of me thinks with the chaos, if the Brazilian Grand Prix is wet or the sprint is wet and it's one of those chaotic races, they're absolutely going to have a chance, because you get those races. Yeah, but still. And next up, we've got Esteban Ocon in the Haas. He's been absolutely ruined recently by Behrman. Will that continue? Well, I think for Ocon's sake, he's absolutely going to hope it's not going to continue. But I can't see anything else, if I'm honest, to do that. Now we've got Nico Hülkenberg. The Stake F1, as I've said before, it was one of the worst cars. It isn't anymore. It's not the best car by a long way, but when they get that setup right, as you've seen, they're in Q3. Can they do it? Yes, they can. But the midfield is absolutely so packed. And there we go, Carlos Sainz is the on-form man at Williams at the moment. Alex Albon really struggling, but I've got him just one place behind Alex Albon, because I'm predicting an Alex Albon revenge. Not really on Carlos Sainz, but the fact that the people are suggesting that Williams, the development has gone towards Carlos Sainz, and that would potentially, yeah, the evidence is there. But I do feel that his teammate is going to fight back. I mean, he's shown at the beginning of the year how amazing he was. Now, could it also be that finally Carlos Sainz has got used to the Williams, very similar to the way Lewis Hamilton is now seemingly getting used to that Ferrari? Absolutely. But it's going to be really interesting at Brazil. It's a track they both know really well. It's a track that Alex Albon maybe should have got a podium, and then Lewis Hamilton happened, sadly. But there we go. So I've got Gabriel Bortoleto, the first driver to drive Brazil as his home Grand Prix since Felipe Massa. So I think I do predict, because it's his home Grand Prix, I think he could do well. I would love him to get some points. I really would. Willie, it's going to be tough, isn't it? It's going to be tough for Bortoleto, but I think he's going to be better than Hülkenberg simply because of home advantage. He's going to boost him. Normally, when you have a driver and the home Grand Prix, it either really boosts them or it completely destroys them. Many people used to say Barrichello struggled at home, but then he got with it. I mean, think about it. In the Stewart, in the Ferrari, he led multiple times to the Brazilian Grand Prix. He was just absolutely cursed. He really was. So Yuki Tsunoda, many think this man is also going to lose his Red Bull seat. He has been getting closer and closer to Max at the moment. And I'd make an argument, when you're looking at a couple of tenths, this time last year, I think he's closer to Max than Sergio Perez was, which is a plus. The problem is, for Yuki Tsunoda, people don't see it as much that way because the grid itself is so close together. And therein lies the issue. You look at qualifying, it used to be 2-3 tenths. It's now like 1/10, hundredths. And he has, on several occasions, been popped out of qualifying by a few hundredths, which is really frustrating for him. But I think in terms of time, when you look at some of the races, he has been closer to Verstappen than Sergio Perez has. You've got, here we go, Rookie of the Year. I would love him to get points. I think he will. It's a circuit that I think would really, really suit him. And yeah, I don't really have any more to say about Isaac Hadjar. Oliver Behrman, the man, the on-form man, the winner of the driver of the race in Mexico. Yeah, this is, I would love him to carry on. I don't think he's going to get a 4th place. Could he get points? Absolutely. And what's really important for Oliver Behrman, I think he'll be fighting for points. If that car's good, it's going to be wet. So it's going to, if it is wet, it's going to be a really interesting test for Ollie. Now, what he needs to do now, between now and the end of the year, because people are already talking, this is the guy that's going to replace Lewis Hamilton, maybe. He just needs to not make any mistakes. Don't do anything silly, and just do what he's doing consistently, out qualifying his teammate Ocon. I don't think anyone predicted he'll be that much better than Ocon, but he really is. So next up, we've got Fernando Alonso. Yes, I think he'll be doing quite well here. The 2 straights I think he'll struggle. In the Aston Martin. We know it's a really draggy car, but you've got that middle section, and you've got the fact, excuse me, I'm trying not to burp, and you've got the fact that this race could potentially be wet, and he's quite handy in the wet, and I think Fernando Alonso will most certainly be looking at potential points, as will this guy here, but he's like the least out of the top 4 teams, simply because he's the rookie. He was good in Mexico. He was solid in Mexico. I hope that continues. This will be another test for him, another chaotic Grand Prix. And I think, unlike Bortoleto, Behrman, Hadjar, he's in a high-profile team, in a high-profile seat where he replaced Lewis Hamilton. And I think the pressure got to him. I think he's sorting himself out now. Mercedes obviously have very good people at the team, but I can't see him beating the likes of Russell, the 2 Ferrari drivers, the 2 McLaren drivers, and Verstappen, sadly. In the race, if you get an accident, maybe. I guess we'll see. Hopefully, though, I eat my words and this guy gets pole and it'll be amazing. The same with George Russell. Again, the Mercedes in the past has been really good at 2022 in Brazil, where they won. But there's also been years, I think it was 23, where they were eating up their tyres. They just weren't quite good enough. And unless they get a sweet setup in what was a very small practice session, which they did in 22, I think Mercedes are going to struggle the most. Now, Ferrari are looking not too bad. They are the on-form people in a way, outside of obviously McLaren and Max Verstappen. They technically have the 3rd best car, Verstappen. With that Red Bull, once again, I've always said it's a bespoke Red Bull for Max Verstappen. That's not to take anything away from him, but it isn't, understandably so. But he does make magic in that car. The 2 McLaren boys, I think, have a better car. So for either Leclerc or Lewis Hamilton to do well, I think someone needs to make a mistake. But I do feel Lewis Hamilton may well have the advantage here over Leclerc. I think he's getting to know that Ferrari better. He's confident. In Mexico, I can't help but feel he possibly would have beaten Leclerc. With his race pace, had he not been given that 10-second penalty, I feel. And let's be honest, Leclerc completely yeeted it anyway. Cheated over the grass to get ahead of Lewis Hamilton. Nothing was said about it, which was ridiculous. But Ferrari aren't going to protest their drivers, are they? But yeah, I think it's going to be one of the stronger weekends for Lewis Hamilton. Podium, unlikely, I think, for a podium. Something's going to have to happen in the race. Will it? Potentially. Toss a coin, maybe, but yeah, for the Ferrari podium. So I've got Piastri on our podium, but obviously there's 2 people ahead of him. The 2 significant people are his 2 title contenders. It wouldn't surprise me if we have a Piastri win or a Piastri pole. It's just that I think the other 2 are the current on-form drivers. Now, all Piastri needs to do, though, is have a solid first practice and then sort it out in sprint qualifying. That is very interesting. He's starting to put the pressure on the other 2. Will that happen? I'm not too sure. So you've got obviously Lando Norris here as well. I think it's either going to be him or Verstappen potentially fighting for the win, fighting for the race. I've put Norris as a slightly least favourite than Max Verstappen simply because of what Max Verstappen did last year, the fact that it can be wet. And I feel that this and maybe Las Vegas are the two races that may favour Red Bull, or at least give Red Bull the chance to beat McLaren. Many are suggesting that the McLaren car is still the best. But I think in the hands of Max Verstappen with the Red Bull, I think he may have an advantage at Brazil. We know they love the straights, and Brazil has let's be fair, it's got quite a lot of and maximum throttle, basically, Sector 1 and Sector 2, which is why I think Max Verstappen is going to win over Lando Norris. Lando Norris, we know that McLaren can be quite draggy. Are they going to have to compromise the setup? Maybe, and they won't have in Mexico, where they were clearly the fastest. It is high. The altitude is high in Brazil as well, but it's not as high as it was in Mexico. If it's dry, I think probably McLaren. But when you bring the wet into it, and the fact that the sprint qualifying wet, there's a good chance. Every session there is a chance of it being wet. In particular, I think the maximum one, the sprint race, wasn't it? With I think was it 75%, but one of them has a really high chance. And then you've got to start to look at Max Verstappen. He's really solid in the wet, providing that Red Bull car can give him the confidence it gave him, for example, last year. So I think Max Verstappen, just going into the weekend, is just favourite over Lando Norris and over Oscar Piastri. So it's going to be really interesting, isn't it? So there you go. There are your predictions. Once again, we don't think Lance Stroll is going to get any points. I want to be wrong. I really do want to be wrong. Am I wrong? I don't know. I don't think I'll be. I guess we'll have to see. But anyway, if you made it to the end, please consider giving us a subscription or subscribe if you are not already, if you think we've earned it. But until then, thank you very much. We will speak to you soon. You just making it to the end is we're not worthy. You just clicking on this video is we're not worthy. We'll speak to you soon. But above all else, stay safe.